Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. 10 months after Akron cops fired 90 bullets at Jayland Walker and hitting him with more than half of those shots simply because of a traffic violation, a grand jury decided not to indict the officers involved in this shooting. And remember this, Jayland was unarmed, while on the contrast, it took just 2 weeks for Black cops to be fired and arrested for the murder of Tyree Nichols in Tennessee. And what's more, leaked photos of the shooting has made its way on to the internet and other places. And folks, if you see these pictures, it's just not the easiest to look at all. You find yourself having to turn away. We're going to discuss that and more. Also, nearly 30 members of the Congressional Black Caucus are encouraging the Department of Transportation to do something about unjust and the discriminatory status quo when it comes to traffic stops, particularly those of African Americans. Also, the Oklahoma governor is seeking the resignation of 4 officials who have leaked. There was leaked audio of them, folks. This is unreal. 4 county officials talking about how they wanted to arrest, lynch, dig holes for Black people, throw them, in their words, niggers into jail. Where are we? What are we doing in America? And the Supreme Court ruled that a Black death row inmate, his DNA testing, he can have that. They can use it to help clear his name. They voted 6-3. But why are we talking about that? Because one such judge that we know voted against this man having an opportunity to clear his name, wanted to put him to death. We know who that judge is. We call him Uncle Thomas. We'll talk more about that this morning with Austin Cooper. And of course, the Reverend Mark Thompson is joining us as well. At some point, I guess Mark is joining us, Austin.
Hey, brother, how are you? Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Let me tell you something. I am in Mexico, near Mexico City, and I feel a whole lot safer here than in America. Why is that?
That is, I mean, America has become the OK Corral. You know, like you, Stacy, I am blessed to travel to other parts of the world. You know, particularly Africa. And I was there 2 weeks ago. I'm going back on Saturday, and a consistent question posed to me by Africans and others. There were some Europeans at my hotel. Is they wanted to talk about Trump. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about the craziness of Trump, but also why there's so many guns. Why can't you all get a get a grip on this? And like you, we were talking before the show. You know, at 60, I have never felt the way I feel. It's I'm tired of America.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I feel a real fatigue with living in in America, especially with these random, uncalled for shootings of innocent people, and it just I feel that it's getting closer and closer to to all of us. God forbid, and unfortunately. Hey, Mark.
Good morning.
Yeah, Mark, we're discussing all of these random shootings. We're going to get to Jayland Walker in a moment, but we're discussing these shootings, the shooting, the young man in Kansas City, the young teenager in Kansas City. But not just, look, let's break this down a little bit, Mark, because we saw the white woman pull up in the wrong driveway and get shot. Shooting, this gun stuff is out of control. I was watching just early this morning, and believe me, folks, it's early here in Cuernavaca, Mexico. Mark gave that look like Cuernavaca, Mexico. Like he gave that same look when Doc was in Israel, but nonetheless,
What you doing in Mexico?
I'm working. I'm working on a project, Mark. We can get into that later, but the young white woman, 20 years old, right?
Right.
Wrong driveway. So Austin is making a point that this is it's happening so much. We all have to be concerned. We have parents and children and siblings and aunts and uncles and cousins. We have to be concerned that this is at some point has to hit close to home, right?
Well, it is, already is. I mean, this is all very close to home, and we see more and more, even with the white folks that are being shot.
Yep.
This is a gun culture.
Yes.
And it's becoming, you think about all the things that culture can be, music and the arts and everything else. America is beginning to have guns overshadow all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's worse than COVID. That's a serious problem. And then you have people who are spreading it, promoting it. It's sick. You cannot have proliferation of guns and emphasis on guns, and then sooner or later people not want to use them. You just can't have them sitting still over here, because in a gun culture and with people who are losing, all sense of reality, you got to use it. So, that old man probably couldn't wait for an excuse to use that gun.
Well, look what I was it Power 96 just wrote in about him. I guess he discovered that the New York Times reported that Clint Ludwig, a grandson of retired aircraft mechanic Andrew Lester, the suspect in the shooting, the one who shot the young teenager. He's not a man yet. In Kansas City, told the Times that his grandfather had frequently made anti-black and anti-gay comments.
Yeah. That's what's out here. And then there's also this fantasy of this home invasion kind of fantasy people have. That everybody's going to be a home invasion. Now, how often are there home invasions? Most of the crooks show up when you're not at home.
Right.
Thank you.
But there's this fantasy. So people want to got a gun. I got to use this gun. I have to use it. And it can't just sit in a safe. I have got to find an excuse to use this gun. Mm-hmm. So it's not just for protection. It's not just for emergencies. It's very, very sick culture.
Well, and to go along with that, what's been happening, so it's hitting everyone. Like we're saying, and when I say close to home, like we're talking, when Austin and I was talking about this, we're talking about personally, our own family members, right? At some point, we are so afraid that it's definitely going to happen to one of us. In other words, but the culture is so prevalent. This is not new. It's been building. Even it's affecting what I'm trying to say is all walks of life. If you think about what's been going on in Hollywood for the last several years, including throughout the pandemic, what they call swatting, where they call the police saying that there's a home invasion or an armed robbery going on at a celebrity's home, and they come in, guns drawn. The SWAT team comes in. Somebody is bound to get hurt. But it's a gun nut society.
Yeah, it's and we have to also draw a parallel, Stacey and Austin, between all of these incidents. For example, gun violence is gun violence is gun violence. So whether it's what happened to Ralph Yarl or the young woman or the cheerleaders, whether what happened at the drive-bys that happened in some of our communities, what happened in Alabama at the party, or what happens when the police kill us. Guns, because see, just because you're a police officer doesn't mean you're absolved of the gun illness and the gun culture.
Oh, no
doubt. And I know you're gonna get in this later, but why do you need to fire 90 shots at somebody?
Oh gosh. Well, we can get into that right now, Mark. But prior to getting into that, Austin, Kinsley White, Greer reminds us that Kinsley White, 6 years old, was shot by a North Carolina neighbor who was upset that a basketball rolled into his yard.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes directly to my brother Mark's comment that you have all of these guns around. Folks are going to find a reason, not justifiable reason, but a reason to to shoot. I mean, what happened to someone, someone knocked on my door the other day. Now I don't own a gun, but I'm in apartment 201. They were mistakenly thought it was 301.
Mm.
I just, peeped through the window, I slightly opened the door, didn't know who it was, and told them you need to go one floor up. What happened to that kind of decency, that kind of, humanity?
Yeah.
What would, a 16-year-old, doesn't try to break a wall, doesn't try to break and enter into the home, rings the doorbell.
Yeah.
What happened to you not opening? What happened
Insanity.
to opening the
Well,
door?
I got to tell you, Austin, and I certainly, yeah, I certainly hear exactly what you're saying and agree with you 100%. But I got to tell you, nowadays, when someone rings my bell or knocks on my door unexpectedly, I go to the upstairs landing and talk to them out the window until I know who it is.
Yeah.
It's just about it's about that song, right? That great hip hop song. It's like a jungle sometimes. It is a jungle, and not just sometimes. We are at war. Make it plain. We are at war.
Well, but I think people. I don't know that we're at war. I think that people are at war against us. I think that there's this culture. I mean, there's an industry, there's a gun industry, there's a gun culture, there's a proliferation. You don't manipulate everybody into buying vehicles and then they don't drive them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's what I'm saying. That's where this is gone. Guns. People are going to use them at some point, and then they're just sitting there. But you don't have a microwave in the kitchen and not use it. So any excuse to use it, because it is a fantasy. And I want to go back now, because we are dealing to some extent with people's mental capacities.
Mm-hmm.
What did Dr. Frances Cress Welsing teach us? The gun is a phallic symbol. It is a symbol of power. It is a symbol of authority that is rooted in the system of racism, white supremacy. Professor Carl Bogus, again, homework, everybody. We have to do our homework. When we're on here talking, this is Cliff Notes.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to do your own homework, folks. Google it, The Hidden History of the Second Amendment. Professor Carl T. Bogus. Second Amendment is an obsolete amendment that was written, that was established to allow plantation owners to keep their guns because our enslaved ancestors were rebelling. That's what it's about. That is documented. That is what was said. So even you white folk, y'all don't even care about us. Okay, but y'all getting shot up now. You're getting shot up as white folk.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of an amendment that was meant for us to stop us. Think about that.
Yeah.
Now, the Republicans are losing. They are on the cusp of losing permanently and becoming more obsolete for two reasons. You deny women their bodily autonomy. Two most important demographics that decide elections: the Black electorate, particularly Black women, and suburban, college-educated white women. They're gone because you took away Roe. Now these white women are seeing that you're allowing their babies to be shot up with these guns. So I'm still in Nashville, down here in Nashville. It's white women out here demonstrating in the streets, white kids.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So they're finally getting it. But I'm adding that extra layer to it. It's not just guns for the sake of guns. This was an amendment meant for us.
Yeah.
And you are being killed because of us.
Wow. Isn't that deep? Denise Roloff Barnes, the publisher of the Washington Informer, writes that the U.S. has become a less desired destination for international travelers due to the violence. The economic impact is impacting major cities across the country, especially in Washington, D.C. And, you see those travel advisories. Speaking of her comment, certainly the Department of State, I looked at it before I came here to see the exact state and city that I was coming to here in Mexico. And I got to tell you, what's interesting is a few days ago, true stories, a Sunday morning, I was awakened. Now, where we are, I'm with a group, and where we are is at a villa that is extremely protected, right? We have the amazing walls and gates and everything, and the compound is just absolutely laid out. However, that being said, Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, I hear what to me sounded like shotguns, okay, what's happening here? You know, that all that stuff here about Mexico. Then that was followed by some dogs barking, and then that was followed by what sounded to be machine guns. So the crew, we could come out, and then the staff here that takes care of us and serves us and things of that nature, they don't speak English very good. So we're like, you know, and they're saying no festival. So we make our contacts, and finally after about 4.5 hours of being very afraid, they do confirm that that's exactly what it is. We get it confirmed that it was just a festival. Somebody says, well, did you think you were in the United States?
Mm, mm.
Imagine that.
There it is, and there it is. You know, to Denise's point, America is becoming a less desired travel destination because of violence. I would also add to that comment that America is becoming a less desirable spot for Americans, you know, who live here. You know, at what point is this going to end? You know, you don't have this kind, to Mark's point, you know, all these weapons here. You don't have those kinds of issues in Africa and the Caribbean and other, you know, Europe and other parts of the world.
Hmm. Exactly. And so Mark,
But
Jayland
what I would
Walker.
say at that point, though, look,
Mhm.
America is a former colony. We look at other nations around the world who are hegemonic. Sun never sets on the British Empire. Look at all these former imperialist nations who committed most of these crimes around the world. Even they have some form of gun control.
Right.
Yeah.
People aren't. So how is it that the nation that broke away from imperialism and one of the greatest revolutions against imperialism in history that's documented, other than the Haitian Revolution, how is it that this nation has become more imperialistic and hegemonic and oppressive against within its own borders than those who control all of the real estate on the earth?
Mm.
It is just not, and everybody else is they're functioning. Nobody's lost any rights. You know, who would have ever thought you would have been safer in the former colonial powers
Yeah.
from gun violence? That's backwards, Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Mark. Absolutely. On
It,
point.
it is backwards. And did you happen to see Mark and Austin, this debate on CNN, in fact, between Representatives Byron Donalds and Jamaal Bowman? They were talking about gun violence, and of course, Byron Donald, the Republican black man, was saying he gave his view of it. You know, the whole MAGA line of, you know, we support the NRA, blah blah blah. His words wasn't "we support the NRA," but his words were "we support the NRA," and he took it back to, you know, black folks, made it about black folks, and Bowman, for lack of a better term, and not to be, let me just say this, he threw him not just a new one, but several new ones, and gave him a history lesson. Like Mark said, history lesson is so important. This is, as he said, I love the way he said that. This is the Cliff Notes. Go back and read the history. Bowman read him the history right there on CNN, going all the way back to Jim Crow and the war on drugs after that. And he said something, Mark and Austin, that it chilled me, because if you grew up in a black neighborhood, like many of us, you realize just how true it was. He said, you know, here's what they gave us. They gave us the illegal numbers gambit, and they put more cops. And so they gave us the illegal numbers, and then they racket, and then they put more cops and drugs in the community.
Right.
I mean, you think about that. It's absolutely amazing when you are able to read. This is why they took this whole CRT, right? They don't want you to know anything.
Right. Right.
All part of the master plan. You know, on this gun violence, I keep saying, and I don't wish ill upon anybody, but only when it hits home, and we talked about it, getting closer, these random shootings, but only when it hits the family members and loved ones and friends. of these, some of these Republicans who are in the NRA pocket, maybe then it will make a difference. Right now, with all of these other shootings, for too many, it is it is abstract. It's not impacting them directly. But perhaps when it hits, starts hitting home, and it will, and it will. Look, we had a member of Congress who was shot, Gabby Gifford, who was shot in 2012 outside of a grocery store in her district. In 2012, we had Steve Scalise. Steve Scalise hasn't changed his position at all, but only when it starts impacting more them. Perhaps, emphasis on perhaps, that will begin to make a difference and change their positions on the NRA and on more sensible gun laws.
So, Mark, we had fantastic attorney Robert Tarver on the show the other day, and we made this discussion. We had this discussion about how easy it is to get an indictment. That old saying, you can indict a ham sandwich, right? If you want to, if a district attorney wants to. So I don't know that the question is why the officers in the Jayland Walker case, I don't know the question is why they weren't indicted. We know why they weren't indicted. But explain to folks, how do you digest this?
Well, again, I wish Dr. Wilson was still here. Because this is trauma therapy that we need. You can't digest it.
Yes.
There's no way you can digest it. And there's a direct relationship between the police and the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment created the police. The police are the militia that come out of the Second Amendment in patrolling enslaved people, for catching enslaved people. And so they are going to be absolved of any crimes they commit against enslaved people. That is the reality in which we live. And we can go on every day with our routines and pretend as if our lives are normal, but they are not. We are still treated like enslaved people. To fire 96 shots, over 90 shots at someone, and 46 of them to hit him is abominable. And it's interesting the way the media decides which cases are more salacious to report. We saw what happened with Tyree Nichols, and we all should know, and that should be reported on. We didn't get as much on Jayland Walker for whatever reason. But I want people to consider this. The gruesomeness with which Tyree Nichols was beaten in Memphis with fists. Imagine that happening with bullets. That is what happened with Jayland Walker. So when we were in Akron, so we were in Akron Monday, we marched, and it was there that the photos were leaked. The crime scene photos, or the police department photos, the forensic photographs of Jayland's remains were released.
And by the way, Mark, we found we decided that they are just too graphic for us to show
No
here.
problem. Well, you're not the only ones. When we shared them, and Joy Reid said on her show last night, they were just too graphic. If you all want to see them, I did post them on my social media with a warning.
Yep.
They're on my Instagram, @minister with 2 T's. They're on Make It Plain on Facebook and Twitter. They are very, very graphic. I believe, though, that, and I'm not saying you're wrong for not posting them. They are very graphic, but I tend to err.
Well, we can't post it because YouTube and Facebook will remove the whole video, just so everyone will know as well. Because I know where you're going with this, because and I'm not going to cut you off any longer, but I'm thinking Emmett Till,
of course.
And so go ahead, Mark.
Well, that's all. That's all there is to it. It's Emmett Till.
Yep.
I've said this before on a slightly different subject, even though it's not that much different. We talk about the death penalty. Years ago when I got involved in death penalty abolition work, I said then, if C-SPAN or live television were to show an execution as it happened, be no more executions. Unfortunately, that's this illness that we deal with. I mean, almost as if, and this is probably far-fetched, but who knows, technology is something else. Suppose every gun had a camera on it and a streaming device. Every time somebody wanted to fire a gun at somebody, that would be streamed all over the world. That might end gun violence. I mean, unfortunately, people need to be shocked and awed into seeing the horrors of these things. And as far as things being close to home, I mean, we don't know this. In Tennessee, the governor wants to do some type of red flag. It's not much, but it's something. Well, what has happened to him? He's a staunch Republican. Why does he want to do that? Is this becoming close to home to him? You're right, though, about Steve Scalise. It happened to him, and he hasn't changed his position because of the money.
That's right.
Because the money is all this. So this America is as sick as Dr. King always said it was. And it is getting sicker by the day.
Yeah, Paris Brown is Austin asked. I don't know if it's a question because there's no question mark, but it's in the form of a question talking about Jayland Walker. Is it an Emmett Till moment? And if that's the question, Paris, the answer is a resounding yes. I believe so. Anyway, Austin.
And I just want to follow
moments, plural.
On
moments, one after the other. Emmett Till moments.
Yeah, exactly. We've had these moments, and these moments are increasing on a almost, unfortunately, daily basis. I mean, the courage of Mamie Till, what she did with her son, galvanized, the civil rights movement. I am hoping, I am praying, obviously, that these shootings cease, but they won't. They're not going until we have sensible gun laws. But I wish, to Mark's point, that one of these parents would have the courage of Mamie Till and say, don't do anything with my son or daughter's remains. Let the world see what they have done. Maybe that will begin to change when folks really see what happens when a first or second grader is shot at close range by an AK-47 and has no face.
Well, then are we thinking that America as a whole has a conscience?
I would like to think we have a conscience, but far too many of us don't have a conscience.
Yeah, and that might be
far too many of us. But I do think that Mamie Till, awakened the conscience of our country by showing Emmett's remains. And I think that America is far beyond and in desperate need of shock moments like that to begin to bring us to our senses.
But Austin, I bet you'd agree with this though. See, here's the problem. You're absolutely right. That was a moment, an instance that was in shock. But in this era where social media is ubiquitous, I wonder if we all become numb. So, for example, I remember when the Aurora Theater shooting happened. Remember that in Colorado?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These
things going on. And this is to say, folks, while we're talking, there's a shooting going on.
Yes.
In America.
Yep.
There's a shooting going on every minute of the day. So
mass shooting.
Whether it's mass or whether it's even a gun accident. I mean, there is a gun incident happening right now somewhere in America, whether it's a mass shooting, individual shooting, a suicide, a gun accident, just boom, 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 boom. Okay. I said in the Aurora piece, I said, when that happened, one of the things I said was this misnomer of black on black violence, which is really an offensive term, was going to lead to more white deaths. And the reason I said that is because when people coined the term black on black violence, it was as if they were placing the pathology of violence exclusively on us. We're the only ones that committed, we're the only ones that carried out. And so white people never thought this was going to happen to them. Now it's happening. So remember how violence in the black community, I'll be honest, many of us have become numb to it. It just happens, it's expected, and we don't do anything about it. And Dr. Welsing talked about that as well. Violence in the white community, what's happened? Same thing. There's a numbness, there's an anesthetism. We just go on because it's such a proliferation. So even though the Jayland Walker pictures are Emmett Till pictures, there's so many images of this stuff every day. Right. It no longer has the gravity of when Mamie Till Moby did it, because nobody ever done that before.
Right.
Now, when we can put up pictures all the time. I was reminded yesterday, speaking of suburban college educated white men, one of my guests who airs on my show every Thursday, Marcos of Daily Coast. He said, Mark, I've gone back to looking at People magazine. I haven't looked at People since I was in the grocery store as a kid, and it was in the tabloid section. This is before the internet, right?
Right.
Here's what he told me. Y'all want to check this out, people.com. People has 80 million subscribers. It's the most subscribed to magazine there is. Every day, they're running stories about Roe and guns, Roe and guns, Roe and guns, every single day. And Marcos was making the case that that is what is informing and organizing and mobilizing suburban college-educated white women. And it is his theory that that is what is going to change. But it has to, because you got to get people to get away from thoughts and prayers, but to play with their feet by voting. You got to get these people out of office who are maintaining these laws. So I'm in Tennessee, left Akron, came here to support the Justins again. It looks like we're safe for the moment. It's probably the last day of the session, but they're trying to push through this bill in Tennessee to arm teachers with guns.
Yes.
We were here.
Teachers stood up against that.
Yeah, we were here Monday night. I'm sorry, I was in Akron Tuesday. We were here Monday night. And the vote was supposed to take place then, but Reverend Barber was here more on Monday. We were all here, packed the gallery, ready to go to jail to stop it. And they realized that, and they said, we better not do this. It also helped that the Senate said they weren't going to take up the bill. So this may not, if it comes out of session, it may just do so symbolically, because it's not going to be a real bill if it happens today or tomorrow before the end of the session. Now, yesterday, it did pass legislation banning union dues for teachers. But see, this gerrymandering, this redistricting is being used to erode whatever democracy there is, and the guns are being used to terrorize people. What happened during the reclamation after Reconstruction? The loss of voting rights, the loss of democracy, and the implementation of terror through the Ku Klux Klan. Lynchings, killings. Now everybody's being lynched and killed and doesn't even know it. Oh, it's just another accident. It's crazy old man who shot a kid. That's not in isolation. It's happening too much, and it's happening every day.
Exactly.
Yeah, everywhere. And so along with that, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, Jamaal Bowman, Ilhan Omar, and others in the CBC. They led the CBC in sending a letter to Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, expressing grave concern over the well-being of Black drivers. They want to change some what they call unjust, or they want the Department of Transportation to denounce unjust and discriminatory status quo, where no matter what city, state, jurisdiction you're in, if you look at the stats, Black drivers are overwhelmingly stopped more than any other race. This is also, in my view, Mark and Austin, tied to the gun violence.
I agree. Again, this country is going to destroy itself. I think it was either Marx or Lenin, Austin, who said the capitalist will be hung with the very rope he sold.
I believe it was Lenin. Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, so we've gone away from the rope hanging. But if you just substitute gun for that, that's where we are. It's sick, but this American arrogance that they call exceptionalism prevents you. Why? You don't want this for anybody. Why should our children be shot up like this? Why should anybody's children? Why should people be afraid to go to school and get shot up? Mm-hmm. Why should people be hit with bullets, during drive-bys, just in their kitchens? Kids shot and killed on the porch. And why should a Black man like Jayland Walker be pulled over and be summarily executed in that way? Tyree Nichols. This is a sick and violent culture that this and we got to do something about it. That's really all that can be said.
Yeah, every year, Austin, the Bureau of Justice Statistics reported that more than 20 million people are pulled over for traffic violations, even though Black folks are less likely to have access to a vehicle, they are more likely to be stopped than their white peers. These are the CBC members say that this is because officers frequently choose to enforce traffic laws against Black drivers over white drivers. Last year, more than 175 people were killed by cops after they were stopped for traffic violations. And obviously, the vast majority of those were African Americans.
Mhm. No, I mean, I was driving, getting a little personal here, but I was driving 2 weeks ago in Alexandria on my way to a doctor's appointment. I was on a conference call and went through a red light. You know, the light was yellow. I thought I could make it. It turned red, and I was afraid of the car behind me, slamming into me. So I went through, and as my luck often is, there was a cop car, right behind me within 10 seconds. So while she's in her car, I guess running my tags, I immediately went into my glove compartment, left the glove compartment open. I had my license, I had my registration, I had my insurance information all laid out on the dashboard, and I had my hands on the steering wheel. And this is, everything went fine. But for so many of us, those very simple traffic violations can lead to our own demise or the demise of our loved ones. To what Mark was saying earlier, I got to admit that I'm a bit nervous now
Oh,
when I
yeah.
go into grocery stores. I am more aware of the potential of danger than I ever was before. I was in Target the other day. I'm just walking around Target. In Target, hundreds of people. You have no idea who anybody is, and you're just walking around Target. There's no security to go into Target. You just walk in with whatever you've got on, and I found myself, getting my products and leaving rather quickly. I just felt a certain unease. I think I had just driving there had heard of another shooting. This is the society that we're in. You're not safe at church. You're not safe at school. You're not safe at the grocery store. You're not safe at the gas station. You're not safe at the movie theater. You're not safe anywhere.
Yeah.
Because someone random. How many times have I come out and been on the phone or listening to the news with my earpiece and approached the wrong car, identical car, same color as mine, and pulled on the handle. And say, God, this is not even my car. This is why the thing is not opening, and walk away. No one opened fire on me. This is, going back to Mark's point earlier, you have these guns, the proliferation of guns. Folks are going to find any reason to use them.
Well, you said something there, and Paris Brown of the Baltimore Times says that she had the same thought when she went to Walmart. Someone didn't look right to me, and so therein lies the thing too for all of us who are trying to be safe. If you see something and you feel, go with your gut.
With your gut.
Take a leap. You can go back to Target another time. You can go back to Walmart at another time. Because again, look, in my view, and I say it's war, and Mark says they are at war with us, and so no matter how you slice it, it's war, and in wartime you have to take additional precautions. Michelle Madison writes that her son and his family live in Virginia. She begs him not to turn around in anyone's driveway if he gets lost. This is where we are, as that great poet said. This is America. It's a shame. And here's what else is America. The Supreme Court on yesterday ruled that a Texas death row inmate, Rodney Reed, a Black man who was convicted of murdering a young grocery store clerk in 1996, can get a new shot at obtaining new DNA tests. And this man, Reed, has contended all along that he's not guilty and that DNA could exonerate him. Well, why not give him the DNA? Well, the Supreme Court did vote 6-3 to overturn a lower court ruling that said he had waited too long to make the request, which waited too long this is life and death, and you're saying he waited too long. But the point of all of this is the one Black man on the Supreme Court decided against this man. And fortunately for him, there's enough votes on there that he's going to get this DNA testing. We know that, and we've documented here in the Black press, the latest shenanigans of Clarence Thomas, the latest impeachable offenses of Clarence Thomas. Make it plain. What are we going to do here with Clarence? What can be done with Clarence Thomas? He's a lifelong appointment. He has the Republican majority, the conservative majority. I don't even know what's the question here, Mark.
So what is the root word of supremacy? Supreme. And that is what the court is. That's why it's set up. It is beyond reproach, beyond accountability. And that's the problem right there in and of itself. So the only thing that can be done, and it doesn't even require a constitutional amendment, if the Democrats had the majority, then they could change all of that, put some type of rules of account, because any other judge would be held accountable, drawn up on all the stuff that Clarence Thomas has been doing, the financial stuff, the insurrectionist stuff. And, there was a commission that talked about expanding the court as well. So the court is no longer an objective, blindfolded arbiter of justice. It has become a partisan institution. The right wing has made it so. It has to be taken back. Otherwise, you're going to continue to have these problems. Clarence Thomas has been a problem for decades. 30 years. We knew that when he was first appointed. He was a buck dancing, shoe shining Uncle Tom, lawn jockey from the very beginning. And I don't care what anybody thinks about what I'm saying, because that's what he was. That's what he is.
Right.
He is an absolute case study in subservience to white supremacy against your own people. That is his job. That is his role. Not to mention his depraved sexual harassment behavior toward
Anita Hill
and others that was not. See, I'm gonna be real now. Some of us, when Barack Obama picked Joe Biden, and said, no, we got problems with Joe Biden because he didn't let the other women come and testify. And, that didn't go anywhere. People are like, oh, we'll just let that go. All right, whatever. But that's what happened. And so dude is, and that's what they do. They get these people who have their own, they want to talk about different cultures in this country, LGBT, and say that those cultures, something's wrong with those people and they're depraved. Forgive me, and again, I know we talk about being too graphic, but I'm gonna ask you something. Who puts pubic hairs on a Coke can?
Thank you.
Who does that?
Thank you.
Even people who do sexual harassment for a living don't do that. People say, let's be real. We all know folk who out of order every day who do stuff they shouldn't be doing. But when is anybody you ever heard of say, oh, I'm gonna go put some pubic hairs on a Coke can? Who does that? That's a different level of something. That's something else.
That's a different level of sickness. And
right there. Somebody should have said, well, wait a minute now, this is what we want on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So America is reaping what it is sown. We're reaping it. The powers that be aren't reaping it. To hell with the Bush family. They did this.
That's right.
They did this to mock a sacred seat that was held by Thurgood Marshall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Clarence, oh my God, something has to change. And, we're getting to the point where it's no longer acceptable, for it to just be about partisanship. So Biden is quiet. Well, there's nothing I can do. I'm a Democratic president. I don't have the House. I don't have the Senate.
He had it.
Well, he had the House. He didn't have the Senate because that was because of Joe Manchin. But I want to remind everybody the movement, the civil rights movement, including Dr. King, they didn't care who was in power. Something happened to us where we lost our ability to do what we need to do, regardless of who's in power, Austin. In other words, now we make calculations based on, well, can we do this? Because Democrats don't have power. Don't matter. Or if the Republicans, but make them do it. If we wanted to do it, we could make them do it. And we just got to organize and mobilize to do that.
You know what you're saying is interesting, and folks who might be skeptical of what you were saying, Mark, that what in the civil rights movement you made them. I am in my traveling party is a guy you might know. His name is Reverend Peter Thompson, and he was a huge part of all of that with the SCLC and SNCC and Dr. King and Abernathy and company. And he said pretty much the same thing that you just said. We didn't have, he said, we did not have friends in politics in power, but we made them do what needed to be done. So that's very interesting, Austin, to hear Mark say that and to hear this other gentleman say that, and folks who were actually there in the fight to say that.
Yep. End of the day, it goes to Mark's earlier point, and yours as well, Stacey, the power of the ballot. You know, the end of the day, getting out and voting. You know, in I guess that was 1988 when Dukakis lost to George H.W. You know, get out and vote. You know, voting we're seeing now. Well, it's always been the case. You know, can change the course of history. Had I don't know who Governor Dukakis would have appointed to the Supreme Court, but it would not have been anyone anywhere near a Clarence Thomas. You know, this is the same George H.W. who ran the Willie Horton ad that had a negative impact on the race and on this country. And even, you know, during the almost 30 years that Clarence Thomas has been on the court, between Justice Thurgood Marshall and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, I never felt, and I would tell people, we are not represented on this court. Just because we have a black on the court does not mean anything.
I mean nothing.
We went 30 years. We went 30 years without having a black on the Supreme Court.
Look, not only that, he don't even talk. He doesn't.
Thank you.
Now, if you really black,
you gonna speak.
Your mama told you, speak up and be heard. Don't sit in the back of the class. Say something. He only has sense enough to do that. I mean, say something, fool. Like, who made these copies today? What's for lunch? Say something.
Mark, how many?
We're gonna have to freeze frame and keep playing over and over again Mark's initial description of Clarence Thomas. That is an all-time.
You need me to repeat
classic
it?
And accurate.
You need me to repeat it? Look, that's one of my favorite subjects. Wearing him out. I'll repeat.
Well, yeah, please repeat it. If you can repeat it.
let me just tell you. I'll give you two reasons why it's easy repeating why I do it, because I'm not just saying it to be saying it.
Of course not. No, we agree.
I was an acolyte of Emerge magazine and our brother who started there. And remember, he put Clarence Thomas on the cover of Emerge with the handkerchief on his head. And then he had him as the line. That was revolutionary at the time. There was no internet yet. So to see that, remember that?
I remember that now.
So when that happened, that was an inspiration. But no, when that was so blasphemous to appoint him in Thurgood Marshall's seat. And I'll tell you something else too. The two brothers from the Washington Post who wrote the unauthorized biography of Clarence Thomas. And there's an anecdote in the beginning of the book where Clarence is back home in South Carolina and he's in a library where he's being honored. And there are two other Uncle Toms standing next to talking to him. And a black woman goes up to them and introduces herself. And so Clarence assumes she wants to take a picture or get an autograph or something. And the woman says, no, I just want to come up close to see what three Uncle Toms really laugh and talk about. I mean, that's what it was. But no, buck dancing, shoe shining, tap dancing, slave mentality, Uncle Tom. I mean, that's exactly what he is. I mean, every one of those things, you know, Armstrong Williams used how offensive. Yeah, that's because he calls him Justice Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what he is. He's not a justice. Roland has a policy where he doesn't allow anybody to call back Uncle Tom on his show. But see, here's, and I respectfully disagree with that. Uncle Tom is a real term.
Yes.
And it is a real political, it's not just an insult. It's not just name calling. Dr. King called people Uncle Tom. And remind people that. So if Dr. King, the apostle of nonviolence, can call somebody Uncle Tom, we can call somebody Uncle Tom.
We can.
And that's what Clarence Thomas is. It's biblical. That's where Doubting Thomas comes from. Jesus showed up in the room. And Doubting Thomas, Uncle Tom said, I don't really believe it's you. Right. I mean, so that's the nature of it. And he is just that. And then there's not been, I don't know that there'll ever be a greater one in American history now, because he's on the most powerful court in history, because he and his wife were involved in insurrection. He's claiming, what is he claiming? Business income from a business that no longer exists. Mm-hmm. And you are sitting over top of people judging them. You were committing crimes, at least of a financial nature, and you were standing over people. And let me be clear, y'all, most of the Supreme Court rulings, most of the cases they hear, they're not about race and civil rights. They're about business and commerce. Right. Those just don't get reported on every day. He's overseeing that while he's taking illegal gifts, while he is reporting income from a company that no longer exists.
$500,000 a year vacations. And not reporting.
So what? So what do you call? So where does the word "sell out" come from? Right. Sale means money. He is a sell out. He is taking money, money, to undermine what's best for everyone. So, buck dancing, shoe shining, lawn jockey, Uncle Tom.
Wow. Well, Oklahoma's governor, guys, is seeking the resignation. One of them already has resigned, the 4 county officials, after the newspaper's audio recording apparently captured some of them complaining about 2 of the newspaper's journalists and knowing hitmen and where to dig holes. And that they also went on to say that as far as Black folks are concerned, they just want to beat their behinds, put them in jail. Here's the audio.
I told you, Will. Yeah. I know where 2 big deep holes are here. I got an excavator. These are already pre-dug. Yeah, but I've known 2 or 3 hit men that are very quiet guys. Yeah. And would cut no mercy. It was back in the day when Alan Marshall take a damn blackjack, whoop their ass and throw them in the cell, I'd run here. Yeah. Well, it's not like that no more. I know. We'll take them down here on Mud Creek and hang them up with the damn rope. Yeah. But you can't do that. The thing about it is, they got more rights than we got.
What they really don't know is they.
And that's the thing about it. 20 years ago, I would have done something like that.
Wow. First of all, not a surprise, right? But
no surprise. No.
But you see the thinking. And it's not just we can't be mistaken. We can't be fooled. This is not just Oklahoma. This is everywhere in this United States, isn't it?
Yep. And they're sharing their stated, behind the scenes racism with other elected officials, with the police department. It is it is deeply, seated, not only in Oklahoma, but across the country. This is what they really feel. This is what they were saying. They thought in the comfort of their home, but they'll, someone tape it and expose them.
Well, now that,
but have any of them apologized? Have any of them? Not that apology would mean anything. This is how they feel.
That's what they believe, right? That's what they are.
It's interesting how
and see, it was also tragic that the Dominion case settled, because we would have got more of this. See, these people are also enabled by Fox News, who is competing with One American News and these other right-wing networks to see who can put out the most outrageous kind of crap like this. And so we live in a culture, once again, and it all begets the gun culture, the culture of violence, where people say the most outrageous and the most racist things they can think of, and the most threatening things. So yeah, that is problematic. I also want to just, well, you know what, I'll leave that alone right now. That's too much. But look, I'm gonna do something for y'all. I think I can do this, Greer. Y'all don't believe me. I think I had this audio. Take it.
We're not hearing it yet, Mark.
You know, hear it? Okay, hold it. I thought I could share it, but I actually have the quote of Dr. King talking about Uncle Tom's. I may not be able to share it because we're on the StreamYard. I'll get that to Greer. Matter of fact, Greer, I'm gonna send this to you right now, and you can put it on the air before we leave.
Share that, Greer, please.
So the audience can hear it. But
Yeah,
you know,
Denise mentions too that it's an interesting documentary, The True Story of Uncle Tom, that folks should check it out. Power 96 says lawn jockey. He's gonna use that, Mark.
handkerchief head, lawn jockey, to use it all. That's what he is. And so, you know, we've really got to figure out a way to change this culture and this narrative. Hold on, Greer. I think I got you. Right.
And Power 96 in the meantime says it's a thug culture in every police and sheriff department in the U.S. But Austin, I don't think you disagree.
Nope, absolutely. No, I mean, this is a deeply seated culture, and I want to follow up on Mark's point. I mean, I was also disappointed that Dominion settled. I wanted them to go to trial. I wanted more to come out. And I don't know that was it $787 million settlement. I don't know that they could have not have gotten that number, if not more, had they gone to trial.
Yeah, someone wrote that the $787.5 million that Fox agreed to pay Dominion, they've paid far more on other things. So this is, yeah, it's a.
I wanted to see Murdoch.
It's a win for Fox News, really.
Exactly. You know, and they have barely mentioned the settlement. I know I was I purposely turned to Fox after the settlement.
Oh, so part of the settlement.
Yeah, he just said, you know, and you know, there's a settlement. I don't have the figure. You don't have the figure. How could I have the figure and you not have the figure? And you're an anchor on Fox.
Yeah. Part of the settlement is that they are they don't. I don't think they have to apologize. And I don't think they even have to acknowledge that they did settle. So it's
well, not only that, what is really also amazing, Fox News has been in this process, has been revealed through the depositions that it's really Amos and Andy for white folks.
Yep.
That behind the scenes, they all agree that what they're doing is ridiculous and absurd and dishonest. But they want to play to this base that otherwise they would lose. Now, and they've pretty much admitted that the base is not intelligent. Why you going, white folks, why y'all gonna continue to watch show when people think you're stupid? They're saying that. I mean, who does that? Who does that? I mean, y'all are that desperate. We're just gonna continue to support this network. And the people, even Tucker Carlson, who's on the plays, big time white president, Donald Trump is a liar. These people are crazy. But you still watching that every night. Greer has it. Greer, you want to play it? I want everybody to hear that.
Submissive Uncle Tom.
No, you start at the beginning. You cut off the first word. Go ahead. Start at the beginning.
Submissive Uncle Tom.
Well, he says grinning at the beginning, but he talks about
submissive Uncle Tom.
That's the voice of God right there. So if he can say it, I can say it.
Yep. Now, let me ask you all, my brothers, can so the Dominion lead order after the settlement was announced said that we're going to be holding others accountable. Can they still go after Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and them, or are they immune?
No, it depends on what the wording of the settlement. It could be in the settlement that they can or cannot. I'm not sure. Maybe Mark, you have any more insight on that?
I don't. I would be surprised if they weren't indemnified in the settlement. In other words, they're forbidden from going after any Fox management employees. That's where those things are usually written. Now, If Rupert signed something that left them open, then he threw them under the bus. That'd be cold-blooded, you know. And if I was Tucker watching this broadcast, I'd be on the phone. Wait, let me see a copy of that settlement. I mean, that would be cold-blooded. But then I wouldn't be surprised because there's no honor amongst thieves.
Exactly.
And they don't get along with each other. Everybody's just using each other. So, I mean, that would be unusual for that kind of settlement. But it would be buck wild if Rupert left them out there. That would be hilarious.
Yeah. There's a situation Power 96 is bringing to our attention in Antioch, California. 17 police officers, he says, is involved in it. Texts described by the police chief, Steve Ford, as racially abhorrent, describing black people, obviously, as animals like gorillas and water buffaloes. Again, the police culture. Mark said it earlier in the show. We know it. They was created or formed to catch slaves.
Right. And you mentioned we are at war. Again, I said people war against us, but I think that people really want another civil war. That is what they're trying to foment and trying to encourage. This is the last bastion of white supremacy, perhaps even in the world. And so that's really what this is all about. They won't stop till they have it. And I don't know what the tipping point is going to be, but these little flare-ups in the context, and they're flare-ups in the context of a whole war, these individual shootings, these individual assaults, be they verbally or through gun violence, every day something is happening. Donald Trump has done his job to divide the country. Again, we cannot absolve the Bushes and the Reagans because the Lee Atwaters, they helped lead up to it. What I was going to say is that, we've been seeing elections stolen for years. Jimmy Carter, who is in hospice now, was denied a second term as a humanitarian because George H.W. Bush flew on Osama bin Laden's father's plane to Paris with William Casey, the future CIA head, to meet with the Ayatollah, to ask him to keep the hostages.
Right. That's right.
Until after the election.
Yep. We recently talked about that too.
History.
And
then people want to hagiographize the Bushes. Oh, they're not as bad as the Trumps. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Lee Atwater gave us the playbook. He said, we had to be racist, but we had to be subtle in our racism. So that's what they did. And then you get in there and you appoint Clarence Thomas. I'll be honest with you. If I was Reagan, I would have been wondering, well, who really arranged for me to be shot? See, there's no honor amongst thieves. You have a former CIA director in H.W., an incoming CIA director in William Casey, that arranged for you to be in the White House. And then within a month of you being sworn in, you get shot. So
I had never thought about that, Mark. Interesting.
Makes all the sense in the world.
He ain't been in long enough to do nothing to be shot for.
Yeah. It goes back to, November 22nd of this year will make 60 years after the assassination of President Kennedy in Dallas. Why can't they release the records? Because it's government in the president's assassination.
And speaking of Kennedy, and we are out of time, but I just want to throw this out there. Maybe we can have a 60-second discussion on it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Running against Biden for the Democratic nomination for president. Quick thoughts, Austin and Mark.
I didn't know that. That's happening?
No. He announced about 2 weeks ago.
I totally missed that. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, RFK has no credibility in RFK Jr. has no credibility in my mind. That campaign won't go anywhere. Won't catch.
Yeah, I don't. And I actually know RFK. I don't see that, and I think that he's going to have a very difficult time dealing with the anti-vax postures that he's taking. And don't get me wrong. I mean, some people. I mean, you have a religious right if you don't want to do that and all of that. People do it for different religious reasons, and people. I mean, I will say this: everything should be scrutinized. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I also don't shut off hearing other perspectives on vaccines and what they do or not do. I don't always agree with them, but I'll listen.
Right.
And it's now that's the platform he's going to run on. I mean, that's
well. Here's and again, I said real quick, but here's the thing too. Should that campaign be dismissed out of hand in the sense that voters appear to be looking for an alternative right now? Biden's popularity is not where he would like it to be, where the White House would like it to be. His approval rating is still really low. And of course, you always see that saying, right? The lesser of two evils. We saw that a lot with the Clinton, Hillary, and Trump campaign. And really, I think that a lot of Democrats thought because of that, Hillary would get the nomination. I mean, she would win the election, I should say. Is this something that the president, the White House should be concerned about?
Yeah. I think in this, think of everything we've been talking about all morning. These are crazy times we're in, and anyone is vulnerable, including Biden politically. So yeah, I think so. They should be concerned about anybody. I mean, this just began. We don't know who else might decide to run.
Yeah. We know Kennedy does have the name recognition where he launched the campaign in Boston. Where else, right? And so that name recognition, when it comes to politics anyway, it still carries weight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it carries as much weight as it used to. I think that probably, faded with his uncle's passing.
Yep.
But Biden should be concerned not just about Kennedy or anyone else for that matter. He is vulnerable. Biden's job was to take out Trump. He did his job. The question now is whether people are going to return him. And I don't mean to be insensitive. I mean, I have elders in my family, but Biden, look at what's happening with Dianne Feinstein.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things Democrats have to deal with now. And I just learned this yesterday too. So go back to RBG. The argument was she should stay as long as she wanted to stay, that it was even anti-feminist for her not to stay. But look what happened when that's just the fact. I'm not judging that. Feinstein. All right. So watch this. They will not allow, because the majority is so thin, they don't have the power to reappoint someone else in her seat on the Judiciary Committee. As a result, there is not likely to be another district judge confirmed.
Yes.
You hear me?
Yes.
So when people talk about one thing, it's like, we'll look at the consequences. So why didn't the leadership say, hey, Dianne, maybe we need to do something a little different here from jump?
Right.
This loyalty to people's longevity. I get it in the sense, so just to be clear, folks, I get it in the sense when it comes to people in the House and Senate who are from historically oppressed groups, you can't apply the same clock. In other words, many of them are aged because they were denied those opportunities when they were younger.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I get that. But gentlemen, there has to be some type of contingency. In other words, okay, you can stay till you're 90 because you couldn't start when you were 40 or 50. Doors just opened up for you to be there. I get that. But we know it's not the day nor the hour. So we need to have some type of contingency plan. So right. Is that worth not being able to? One of the hallmarks, again, talk back to Biden, one of the hallmarks of what he's been doing is appointing a diverse array of judges. Mm-hmm. So now because you're loyal to someone who's been there so long and was at an age where, and it was obvious, there were signs of illness, your loyalty to that has now taken away one of the things Biden could have used to run on in 2024, especially when it comes back. I've appointed Black district judges. Can't do that no more.
That's right.
So who's thinking? There's got to be a way to not be disrespectful to her. And I hope people hear the objectivity way in which I'm saying this. I'm just saying, some people say, the hell with it. She shouldn't. No. There's got to be a way to do that. Don't put on a judiciary committee. Put on another committee at the beginning of the rules session. But now you can't change the rules. And you can't replace her. Even if she would have resigned from the Senate and get appointed, there'd be another appointee in her seat. The Republicans can filibuster the rules so that new person can't go in her place. Nobody can go. So it's only the appellate and the Supreme Court judges that doesn't apply to. District judges, where there is a shortage, that can't happen. So this is the cost of that type of personal politics, personal favorite politics. Austin, 100 years old. Man, Austin, my boy, he need to stay in the Senate till he dies. Okay, I love you, Austin, but let's not put you on a committee where it's going to nullify us being able to get judges on the bench who look like us.
That's right.
There you go.
And who don't act like Clarence Thomas. I think that was a full circle thing I just did right there. Y'all catch that?
And if I can take one more liberty, I know we're out of time, but Mark, can you just give us that quote about one more?
Buck dancing, shoes shining, handkerchief head, long stocky Uncle Tom. You quote me on that.
Love it.
I do not care. No, one time I was on mainstream television and I did it. I think that might have been the last time I was on CNN. and about 25 years ago, and he did something crazy then because he's been doing some crazy stuff all the time. And they had me on talk about it. No, it was CBS. It was CBS. And I said, this is what buck dancing, shoe shining, handkerchief head, on Uncle Tom's do. And the host was like, what? That's what.
Look, this is why we're over time. Anytime we have Make It Plain, we got.
And one more thing. And listen. When I used to talk about it on in my background music grid, you should pull this up. Was gonna jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton. Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton. So when the brothers wrote the book about Clarence Thomas, and they were on, I had the music playing in the background, and they died. They were like, "Dude, we cannot believe you playing that music while we talking."
Are done here, y'all.
Wow.
Oh Lordy, pick a bale of cotton.
Take us over, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Don't call me early in the morning and get me up if y'all don't want me to act up. Y'all know how to act. Just let me sleep. If you don't
we can't let you sleep.
Greg called me up. You gonna get up? I said, okay, I am. But don't be and then get mad because I'm singing "Pick a Bale of Cotton." Now this is what we're gonna do.
Thanks so much for watching, y'all. We'll see y'all again tomorrow. Take care.
All right, brothers. Take care.